loading snacks.
What to do, snackers, snackers, and snack X's. Your boy Gage is here with jokes. Yo,
Yo.
my main man. You are now tuned into Spoiler Boy.
Spoiler boys!
My man, it's official. First Spoiler Boys of 2026, and it is none other than the MCU's Disney Plus's Wonderman. Now look, we heard about Wonderman. I want to say like 4 years.
That sounds about right.
One was the first time that we got anything about Wonderman.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been up in the air. Like I specifically remember them talking about Wonderman and us having conversations on like Loading Snacks Weekly and probably across other Spoiler Boys episodes for various TV shows and movies or whatever, where we talked about Wonderman and Wonderman's tied to like Vision and all that kind of stuff. So this has really been like a long time coming. Jokes, what do you know about Wonder Man? Like, are you familiar? Like, I know you could not have been reading Wonder Man comics for sure.
Not
but
at
like,
all. Not at all. Wonder Man was one of those, like, I knew he existed, but I didn't have the appeal to me to like go and really dig deep into it. Never really showed up in any mainline, I guess you could say, shows and entertainment than anything else. Like, I knew the comic existed, but I just had no drive to actually go and get Wonder Man.
Yeah, so here's the thing. Wonder Man when I started reading comics in like the late 80s, my opinion of Wonder Man was slim as fluke. Like, DC has a Wonder Woman. Like, that's, you know what I mean? Wonder Man is one of those characters that I feel like just kind of never really took off. I don't feel like people ever cared, though. His appearances throughout the Avengers, I mean, he did eventually, like, he did have his own book. But the character was I never really found the character interesting. Not the way I found the characters around Wonder Man interesting. And I'll be honest, Wonder Man as a comic book character has a really interesting story and a really kind of a crazy arc, but it's kind of all over the place and relatively convoluted. And I think that with a name like Wonder Man, not that Captain America is the most brilliant naming scheme in the world, or Iron Man isn't the most, but there is something about a name like Wonder Man. It's just kind of like, you know what I mean? And I think that when like the best you can do for a logo or a symbol that represents you is a giant W, people are not gonna really have interest. Having said that, Wonder Man is a threat, and I need to make that very, very clear. So for anybody who is watching this, anybody who watched this series and has no other information about Wonder Man as a character as a whole, let me help put some things in perspective before we really dig into the show, because I need you to understand why Wonder Man is important, and I definitely need you to understand how powerful Wonder Man actually is. So TLDR, right? Yes, Wonder Man is a character that he and his brother Eric, they had an abusive father who had some money. Their father passed away. He inherited the company. His brother Eric, that abuse, Simon Williams was like smart and applied himself in school and all that kind of stuff. And his brother kind of dealt with the abuse and so forth, and he became like a bully. You know what I mean? And his brother actually is an evil. His brother's Grim Reaper.
Yeah.
So, Simon inherits his father's company, and like anybody else who has a company that deals in tech, Stark basically puts him in a position where his company's going out of business. He ends up doing some things with his business that are underhanded or whatever to get money, and he basically gets caught for doing it. He's supposed to go to jail. He gets bailed out by the Enchantress, who at the time is working with and for Baron Zemo.
Mm-hmm.
So they bring him in, and they're like, "We can help you get back at the Avengers. We can help, at Stark and all that. We got to do some tests on you. We're gonna do something to you." So basically, Baron
Mm-hmm.
Zemo gives him the ionic powers that he has in the comics. Like he injects
Okay.
him with this ion energy or whatever, and that's how he gets his powers. And then he's basically told, now that you have these powers, you got to go and help us lure in the Avengers, and we're going to defeat the Avengers, blah, blah, blah. But then Baron Zemo tells him, here's the deal. The injections that I gave you will only last so long, and they will kill you if you don't get this antidote from me to keep it from killing you. So he's basically holding him hostage, right? You have the
Mm.
powers, but now he's kind of forcing him to do what he does. And in their fight with the Avengers, he basically turns on Zemo, right? This all
Mm-hmm.
kind of happens in the same book. He turns on Zemo and arrested him, helps the Avengers, and then basically dies, like in the first book, right?
Oh, okay.
But he doesn't. Yeah, but he doesn't. He basically dies. Hank Pym takes his mental capacity or whatever, and he stores it away in case for whatever reason they can bring him back, and that ends up being stolen and used by Ultron to make Vision. And so when Vision is originally created, his consciousness comes from Wonderman. His emotions, all that kind of stuff comes from Wonderman. And of course, we know the whole thing with Wanda and Vision and blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, again, TLDR, eventually, he kind of comes back to life. There's a whole thing where, like, his brother steals his body, takes him to somebody, they bring him back as a zombie, blah, blah, blah. He goes back to get them. It turns into this whole thing where it turns out he, I guess, wasn't actually a zombie. It was just his body. He can't really die. And it was kind of him coming back and now actually gaining and getting control over his powers. And so over time, his powers have changed and have adjusted, and he's become more powerful,
Mm-hmm.
and been able to do things. Like originally, he had to fly using a jetpack. He used an ionic
Mm-hmm.
jetpack, but eventually he learns how to fly himself, right? All of that notwithstanding, because there's a whole lot more to it. There's a weird love triangle with him and Vision and Wanda and all of that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
He is basically, though, in the long run, he basically becomes someone who is willing to help out when necessary, but for the most part, he does the Hollywood thing and kind of, stays in that realm and doesn't really want to fight and all that kind of stuff. But he was created to be able to defeat the Avengers.
That says
He has
enough right there.
he has gone toe to toe with Thor. He has fought the Hulk and basically beat. He's fought the Hulk to a stalemate. He dated and has defeated Captain Marvel. Like, Slim is not a game. He is quite a powerful individual and can do some things. So having an introduction of a character that has the kind of power that Wonder Man has right now is a very,
Mm.
very interesting position. And I think we can get to it at the end. I think I have an idea of what they might want to do with him in the MCU now,
Mm.
with like the Kang thing out of the way and the Doctor Doom thing kind of looming. Um, there are some things that they could do, but we don't really get to see what he can really do in this show.
Definitely
Not
not.
even not even close to what he can actually do. So I think it's a really good setup, and to me, it means that they are either definitely setting for a second season and or planning to have him be integral to what is coming.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know for a fact whether or not they're going to try to make him a mutant.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like this is technically supposed to be kicking off the Mutant Saga. That's where we're headed. And it seems like that's the direction that this is going because all the stuff with the DOD, like the Department of Damage Control, DODC. But we'll get into that and we'll talk about that and some of our theories and where we think it might be going a little later. Let's get into the show. Jokes. First and foremost, your
Mm-hmm.
overall thoughts on this show. 8 episodes, about 30 minutes apiece.
Mm-hmm.
I think pacing is good, timing is good, not too long. Where you at?
I'm right. I'm right in that same boat. Like, I thoroughly enjoy Wonderman. Like going into this, expectations were kind of, I guess you say, were kind of mid. Like me, one, not fully versed with Wonder Man, so I'm like, okay, cool, getting something new here, going in fresh.
Mhm.
Like I don't know what to really expect. Story though, like I think keeping this right now that 30-minute episode mark, I was like, yo, these episodes
Yeah.
feel really good for what they did.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Personally, overall, right now, like I'm at a 9. Like
Okay.
I think they executed this very well. If this
Okay.
wasn't honest truth is, even if this had nothing to do with the MCU and we take out like a super powered being or whatever, I like the element of seeing, Simon Williams trying, to land the role and to do all that. Like, I think the story is something that anybody could really jump into and not needing to know everything Marvel related. That stuff will come with time as usual. Obviously, Trevor being really the only piece of the puzzle kind of that's in there for it. But I
Yeah.
think they executed this very well. They didn't do great marketing for it, but overall, when it came down to it, I think the show, I think it was really good.
Here's what's interesting is that um you're not the first person I've heard talk about what the marketing looked like for this show.
Mm-hmm.
Um I would say I'm about where you are. I think this show is a solid 9, bordering on a 10. Like I think it's bordering on a 10. It's a solid 9. Um I don't think there are any bad episodes, and I don't think episode for episode I'd say there's anything less than an 8.
Mm-hmm.
Um Having said that, for something that seems like it's so good and is so well executed, yes, the marketing seems to have been very minimal.
Mm-hmm.
Um what I think is that either they don't know exactly what they're going to do with Wonder Man going forward, or they have recently made some adjustments to how they're doing things and
Mm-hmm.
they didn't push it. But also, they could have pushed this on TV and whatever, and I would never know it because I don't watch TV anymore.
Valid.
Um, I don't have ads on YouTube anymore. I don't have ads on anything
Anything.
anymore. So like for real. So the only way, truthfully, I would have really ever seen anything for this would be if they dropped the trailer.
Scrolling.
When
Mm-hmm.
they dropped the trailer for it, or if they did anything like on social media or whatever, scrolling through, then I may have seen it. They certainly didn't give it a heavy marketing push.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and what that means for the show in the long run remains to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think there is space now, given the kudos that it's getting, that they may start to kind of push it to see what happens with it, but we'll have to see.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I am. I think that this show quite possibly has the best character development of any show the MCU has ever done. Most of the shows that we've gotten for the MCU have had characters we're already familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
And so the development of those characters has happened over 2-hour spans throughout multiple movies or whatever before you really get a show where you can get 4 hours in this case, 6 hours with most of their shows,
Mm-hmm.
give or take, right? With the exception of like Moon Knight and maybe Echo, right? Like Echo, I liked Echo as a show. I thought it was cool. It doesn't have the character development that this has.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but Echo feels like it's in a different universe than this.
I can agree with that.
Echo as a Echo as a show feels like it's in an MCU universe. And Wonderman feels like a reality show in the MCU. Like it feels like it spends its time focusing on the life and the person and the character, which is, I think, exactly where Marvel needs to be going as they begin to push into the Mutant Saga.
Mm-hmm.
Because the whole thing about mutants is they have these powers or these extraordinary looks and they might be dangerous or blah, blah, blah. But they're still people. They're still people with thoughts and feelings, and they
Mm-hmm.
have a lot going on and rent. And you know, his girlfriend breaks up with him early on, and like you really see kind of what he's dealing with, and you get to see that he's been dealing with it from a very young age. You get the idea or the notion that deep down inside he's still dealing with and took the loss of his father very hard and is still coping with that and still
Mm-hmm.
trying to make him proud. And they never say that. They never
Yeah.
tell you that. They don't even bother to tell you what happened to his father. They just, he's not here. You know what I mean? Um, and I think that the development of Simon Williams as a character is the kind of development that makes people fall in love with a character the way people loved and cared about not Captain America, but Steve Rogers.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like the show is Wonder Man, and he's trying to be in a show called Wonder
Go.
Man, but we are meeting and dealing with and learning to like and
Mm-hmm.
feel for Simon Williams and his mother and his brother, who we feel like is kind of a dick. You know what I'm
Dick.
saying? But we kind of get it. You know, like we are dealing with the person and the personality of the person who takes phone calls from regular people and is trying to go on auditions and is really trying to figure it out and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's the character development in this show that sets it apart from everything else that the MCU has done in terms
Mm-hmm.
of TV so far.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with that?
I agree with that. I 100% agree with that.
Do you like Simon Williams?
I like Simon Williams. Like I think he's someone maybe that people can relate to. You know, if you
Hmm?
take not even necessarily saying as an average person trying to be in like an actor, but just a job in general. Like you see this dude,
Yeah.
going through hoops, like whether it's maybe you're trying to get a promotion at work or something like that. Like literally this dude is just trying to land and get this job that
Yeah.
he just dreams of. So it's like I feel like he can relate to a lot of people. And then just like you said, having, his girl breaking up with him right at the beginning of the show, like that's real life. Like he came home and was like,
Yeah.
what's happening? Oh, you weren't supposed to be back till like 5 o'clock. Like things that are like, I guess you could say grounded that could actually happen to an average
Bro,
person.
can I tell you what my favorite part of this entire show is?
Go for it.
It's when he's so worried about in the episode where he's so worried about the writer from the New York Times and his
Mm-hmm.
secret getting out, right? It's when the girlfriend comes back. It's when he sits down at the bar with the girlfriend and she says, "Don't worry, I didn't tell her your secret."
Mm-hmm.
And he's looking at her like, "What?" And she's like, "I knew. I always knew. I was just waiting for you to trust me enough
Mm-hmm.
to tell me." Right? I like to me that that conversation between the two of them, that moment
Mm-hmm.
is probably the most humanizing moment in the entire show, where he gets the realization that he is not allowing people in, and that the one person that he tried to allow in, like when they talk about him never really having friends growing
Yeah.
up and none of that kind of stuff, and even Trevor's like, "I don't know friends, like we can't go." Like you know it's nah, he never let anyone in because he was so afraid that something was going to happen that was going to give him away, that he pushed everyone away, including
Mm-hmm.
her, without realizing it. And you know, she's like, "I lived with you, I loved you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know what I mean. I knew." Um, I think it's the most important part of I think it's literally the most important thing in the entire show is that moment, because I think that moment is where he truly comes to the realization that even though he is trying to protect himself and doesn't want people to find out, that when he does have somebody that he can trust, he doesn't. He doesn't let them
Mm-hmm.
in. And the only other person besides her that isn't a family member that he's ever bothered to let know, even if he didn't mean to,
Mm-hmm.
is Trevor.
Trevor. Mm-hmm.
And of course, then he goes and finds out that Trevor basically did betray that trust. That it was all quote unquote a farce and was fake. And so the the anger that comes in the moment after he has that conversation with Trevor, where he goes in and basically there's the quote unquote explosion at the lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not because Trevor betrayed his trust. It's because it's everything. It's all of it
Yeah.
all at once. Being like, I'm I can't win. It's that I can't win for losing. I shouldn't let people in. And the moment he starts to get the idea that, like, all right, there might actually be people I can trust and I can whatever, it's gone. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Just like that. Um, and so I also think that in the aftermath of that, and then what Trevor does at the end to kind of fix it, is what puts him in a place where he says, "Well, I just gotta go do me. I gotta go be me. Like I gotta
Mm-hmm.
go. I'm gonna go take care of him and get out of here. And I'm just gonna use. They're gonna know it's me that got him out of there. There's no way not to." Um, do you have favorite moments or something like that from the show?
Yeah, I think scattered throughout, like definitely those moments, like when him and Trevor, would just have one, just the two of them being the actors, and really just talking each other through the parts, like especially like Simon, he has the nerves, like what gets him fired from his first gig. He needs to over critique everything, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I thought we got past that. Like once we get past the beginning, he gets canned, and then we get to do the new stuff. I'm like, dude, you're still doing this. I'm like, but luckily, Trevor is there, and he's
Hmm.
just like, hey, just like just dial it back, and just kind of takes over the conversation.
Yeah.
Like the two of them are like sometimes when you have like your supporting characters like trying to bounce off of each other, there can be some conflicts between the two of them, but I think the two of them parallel the whole entire way through this. And not to mention,
It's so weird. Yeah.
Trevor, who and we've had this discussion, like I hated the way that they did the Mandarin. Like I think they took this A-list person, acted us out here, I hated that for a long time. And seeing what he's done, like obviously showing up in Shang-Chi, just a little small thing, like whatever, that was cool. But in this, it actually made me care about Trevor. And I'm like, yo, I need this dude to stay
Hmm.
around for a while, regardless of what it may be. Yo, I think one of their best
Yeah.
interactions, funny enough, when dude on like the scooter uh saw my man Simon throw down all of them when they was trying to go after Trevor, and they ended up getting to the house. So he was like, "Listen, I'll give you the video if you guys could go get my bike back from homie," and like just have that
Yeah.
whole moment in the house with the cops showing up and all this. And my man Trevor has no idea how a GoPro actually works, and he
Yep.
and has
Yeah.
asked the questions like,
He asked the right questions though.
can you upload stuff from this without having like a computer and all this? And he learns it real quick, and it's just like, hand that on over. Like
Hmm.
this
Hmm.
show has made me care about a character that on for the longest time I hated and I
You hated
despised
him.
because of what they did
Yeah.
to him.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, but those type of things throughout the whole entire show for me have been, um, really getting to know, like you said, getting to know, besides the two of them, these other characters, whether it be, the family, learning from like Simon's brother, the whole backstory that we kind of learn about, things exploding in the kitchen and all that. Um, I guess is she his manager? The one that he always,
Oh, his
Simon
agent.
always, his
His
agent.
agent.
That
Yeah.
you get like,
Yeah.
I love her personality.
Yeah.
It's like, even though he
Yeah.
keep calling, she's like, hey, listen, you gonna call
She's
me
real.
again, you ain't never gonna know
I
if
ain't
you
telling you
got
nothing, dog. Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I genuinely
It's
like
dope.
the connection to each of these characters. Like, I love it. Um, there's so many moments, just like you bring up the one that just give this show a lot of heart. And sometimes there's only one moment like in a series that does that, but they do a very good
Yeah.
job at 30
Throughout.
minute episodes and being able to place things like this
Hmm.
throughout the entire series and then make it matter. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Um. Yeah. I mean, look, I think it's very well put together. I'm a fan of like the cinematography throughout the show. Um. Again, like he's this struggling actor trying to make it in Hollywood, driving this beat up car. Like,
he whipped that junk though.
he's fascinated with he knows everything there is to know about movies, and he's fascinated with lines of dialogue and directors and who does what, and he's quirky, right? Like he
Mm-hmm.
clearly has like some OCD, some
Mm-hmm.
ADHD, some like he's got all these things that again I think are things that people can really relate to, and it makes him relatable as maybe a hero.
Mm-hmm.
um it's gonna be hard to say. The So for instance, again, look, there's a lot of Easter eggs throughout this show, right? So when they go to the mansion
Mm-hmm.
to like shoot the thing, that mansion is the mansion that becomes the home base for the West Coast Avengers in the comics.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah, like they
Ooh.
drop like there's a lot of little like Easter eggs and stuff like that like throughout. And like again, if you don't know, it's not that big a deal. Like it's cool, like you see the house, whatever, and maybe they never do anything with it because we just don't know, you know what I mean, with
It's a cool
Marvel
way to
and the
put it
way
in
that
there
they.
without actually playing off of it later. Like, if you see it and you know it, cool, that was for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, yeah, like you said, and of course, multiverse. Who knows? You show a quick little glimpse, like, hey, this is universe, whatever, and it is the West
Yeah.
Coast Avengers. It's there to at least set you up for those potentials.
One of the things I think is really interesting about this show, and like I don't know what they did in terms of like they did reshoots or whatever. But I know that the show was being worked on and put together like through like the writer strikes and the
Mm-hmm.
actors guild strike, and that like there was a lot of that kind of stuff going on. And like the lot, for instance, the lot where they're shooting the Wonderman
Mm-hmm.
movie in the show is a real movie lot.
Mm-hmm.
And that movie lot, if I'm not mistaken, like now is like in foreclosure. Like when they
Oh,
shot this a couple of years ago or whatever, and like now that lot might not even, like, it's crazy he blew that joint up, but now that joint might not exist, right? It's interesting because I feel like so many of the shows, movies, content that has been created over the last like 4 or 5 years that has done
mm-hmm.
so in the like during the zeitgeist of all the strikes and coming out of COVID and just all that kind of stuff, we've seen them turn out not so great, right? Like we've seen it and we've been able to kind of point to some things and say, looks like they maybe cut some stuff here, or maybe there's an episode that's missing or something like that in here.
I
Whatever
didn't
they
get I
did,
I didn't get none of that sense. Like any chopping room floor. Like there's little itty bitty, but nothing that's just like whoa. Like there's something
yeah,
missing
like
from.
the most, the closest thing to that I feel like could be a factor
Mm-hmm.
is the last episode. In the last episode, it seemed like they're coming to like him doing the movie and having the premiere and getting his brother's
Mm-hmm.
blessing and his mom being really happy and him watching it all, and then her asking him, Janelle, I think is her name, his agent, asking him like, it was a good thing what Trevor said, not taking these deals, up front or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
because now you're a big star. You can kind of ask for what you want and blah blah blah. What do you want to work on? And it kind of cutting from there seemed like that may have originally been the end of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's where they were going to cut the series off. And when they come back and just kind of, it feels like it's going on for too long. That whole segment with him meeting the regular family and talking
Mm-hmm.
about, in the bar about like, this is a normal thing. I'm just kind of going to try to hang out and just watch you and whatever. I want to do this movie about, whatever. It seems like there's some time that has passed in there that they don't really talk about, that maybe there are some things that they did that take us back to the cutting room floor.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that at that is the one point in the entire show where I'm like, it feels like it's a little slow, like it's dragging a little bit, might be taking a little too long, but then they nail it at the end when they're like finally get to go to work with him and you see what he does and that he works for the department of, what I'm saying, of damage control as a security guard, and you're like, oh, then you already know. You know what he's going there for. You know what I mean? Like you know what it is. And then it kind of makes sense. But that's the only place, like, I feel like in the entire show, in the
Mm-hmm.
entire season, where it gets a little slow and it's kind of like, I might need to pick it
Mm-hmm.
up a little bit. Um, and that feels to me like that might have been something that got changed.
Mm-hmm.
After the fact, or maybe was a little bit of a rewrite or whatever in order to kind of set things up going forward. Um, bro, we gotta talk about Doorman.
Hey, look, when he went to the audition for Wonder Man and got in and started having him sign a paper, and when my man said something about the
You
doorman
gotta,
clause and the having power, at
yeah,
first, now I didn't know about doorman. So when I heard that, I'm
okay,
like, what the hell is he talking about right now? Clearly, it got passed
yeah.
over and we didn't really dive into it. And that at first initially I was like, ooh. But then I was like, that's gonna play out later on. And then I think that was
Sure.
the that very next episode, and we start going into the whole backstory on Doorman. I
What a great episode. Completely black and white except for the very end where you actually see Simon. None of the rest of the characters from the show are in this episode
mm-hmm.
at all. Doorman is such an obscure character, but is a real character.
Mm-hmm.
And my man even has like his comic accurate suit in the movie with Josh Gad, J Gad, you know what I'm saying, or whatever, right? Um, and I don't like. Here's the thing: Doorman is one of the Great Lakes Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's the Avengers, there's the West Coast Avengers. They also have the Great Lakes Avengers, and they're all kind of corny.
Yeah.
But like, we have seen another one of the Great Lakes Avengers in She-Hulk. There was the dude who was like immortal or Mr. Immortal or whatever, who like threw himself out the window.
Mm-hmm.
He was like visiting a lawyer or whatever, and he threw himself out the window and fell on a car and got up or whatever and
Mm-hmm.
walked away. He also was one of the Great Lakes Avengers. And it was just kind of dope that they made a character like that, again, have a backstory that you could actually care about.
Mm-hmm.
That like you feel for him as a character. You see him go through this arc that isn't really different from what I think a lot of celebrities go through when they start to get that fame and they start to like, all right,
Mm-hmm.
well, now you're old news. What have you done,
Right.
lately or whatever? Kind of become a gimmick. And in all truth, like, dude might have been the happiest, coolest doorman ever. Like, he was chill. Like, he
He
was like,
loved it. I ain't gotta
I'm
go
good.
nowhere.
Yeah,
I
I'm
love my
good with
job.
being a doorman.
I'm fine with it.
He didn't want to move up. Mans wasn't trying to, you know what I mean? He was like, nah, I'm good being a doorman. You know what I mean? Um, I just thought it was a really good way to give a lot of context to the reason why.
Mm-hmm.
It adds so much context to why it's so important for Simon to hide his abilities.
Yep.
Right? Because in the back of my head, right, there's a part of me that was thinking like, well, he's gonna be Wonder Man. And
Mm-hmm.
so it seems like maybe somebody's gonna find out or they're gonna figure something out and it's gonna work out to his benefit because he'll be able to use his abilities or his powers or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
like in the comics, Wonder Man, he struggles to land good jobs. It's kind of just like what he was going through. Like he struggles to land good acting jobs. He can't really get great stuff, da da da, all of that stuff. And he does end up for a period of time being like a stuntman because
Mm-hmm.
that's just what his body, like, he's good for that. Like that's what his body is good for. Before he lands a role on like a soap opera, a long running soap opera. As a matter of fact, the same soap opera that Mary Jane ends up being on when she finally becomes an actress. It's the
Mm-hmm.
same soap opera that Wonder Man was on in the comics. To be able to like take an episode like that is kind of could exist on its own anyway, and use it for context for why it's such a big deal, what the doorman
Mm-hmm.
clause is, and why he can't let anybody know he's got powers. Um, again, all of the things that they're doing in this show remind me so much of what they were doing and have done with mutants. It
Mm-hmm.
seems like he developed his powers during adolescence, so I think they're gonna make him a mutant. You know what I mean? He's trying to hide it, keep it a secret. His family knows, but they don't want to tell people.
And that kind of
I
fits. That
think
kind
that's
of
gonna
fits
be
the
important.
bill. Fits the bill of how
Yeah,
mutants are, and his family. I wouldn't necessarily. Obviously, mom. I would say obviously is accepting. She's mom. She's gonna do it. The brother knows. But like we said,
yeah,
he's just kind of being a dick the whole way through, up at least up until the end on there for it. But
yeah,
there's a lot of that.
yeah,
There's a lot of that like mutant storyline that we've seen from like the X-Men series over the years, where there are some accepting people. There's no one as of
yeah,
now that is just outright just despises this dude with abilities. But like if you said, if a season 2 happens and his powers do get out there, maybe we'll start to see something along the lines of that. But obviously that's if that type of thing
yeah.
even happens on there for it. We could get like
So there
a
was a
one off.
there
I'll
was a
go for it.
there was a period in the comics where Wonder Man had an issue with his powers, and it kind of got away from him, and he actually ended up giving his powers, not on purpose, to like 5 or 6 other people around him, like people that he
Oof.
knew, and they become a superhero team. Like they become, because they end up with his powers. Like it's a whole thing, right? Um, Nonetheless, again, it they don't really give you a good look at what he can do. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like in the comics, he eventually is like he can shoot beams out of his eyes and beams from his hands. And again, he can fly. So they show you that
Mm-hmm.
at the end of at the end, like he's managed to gain some control, you know what I mean, over it. Um, but we don't really know, you know what I mean,
Right.
anything. And they introduce it as a new ability or a new power within the grander MCU. Like
Mm-hmm.
we have basically used the Infinity Gems and the colors of those gems to tell us what kinds of powers and things are happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we know when we see green, that's the time stone. Like those are
Mm-hmm.
time control powers. That's what I mean, what that is. When we see red, those are reality warping powers.
Mm-hmm.
That is that kind of thing. So you see Wanda, you see the reality stone, you see like that's what that is. When you see the purple, that's strength. That's how
Mm-hmm.
Thanos is able to really so easily defeat the Hulk. Like you see Peter like use that. When you see blue, you know that is being able to travel or move through
Mm-hmm.
space and that kind of stuff. So um they really kind of give us a color coding for this. And sometimes his eyes are a little bit red, sometimes it's
There's
a
a.
little bit
Mm-hmm.
purple. Like it's a little bit different. We don't really know. And then them saying like, "Oh well, we studied all the stuff from the explosion, and everything
Mm-hmm.
kind of welded together, and it's all filled with ionic energy. And there's potential for him to either be a great threat or a great weapon. You know what I mean,
Mm-hmm.
or a great ally, right?" And so that kind of got my gears turning a little bit. So what I want to do now, jokes, is I think we're both in the same place in terms of what the show is and how we feel about the show and where we grade the show. But and you've even mentioned that this show would be a great show if it didn't have anything to do with the MCU. Like it could
Mm-hmm.
kind of just be its own thing and it would be cool. But it's not.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of the MCU.
It's part of the
And
MCU.
so now, yeah, it's our job now to go, all right, where is this taking us? How does this tie in to the rest of what's going on and where we're headed? And I have a couple of theories, but I want to hear what you think. Like where you think Wonder Man comes into play, West Coast Avengers, blah blah
Mm-hmm.
blah. Like, just what are your thoughts?
So like I'm going. So going under. Let's say obviously he helps Trevor escape, and they're gonna know it's him. Like when they go back and run camp, like they're gonna. I know he fried camp. Somehow there's always the one that ends up catching them as they do things, but technically now it's gonna make him like a fugitive. Now he's like out here with the Mandarin, who has take
Mhm,
ownership of destroying the building and everything. Which at that point
mhm,
somehow, obviously the Department of Damage Control is going to intervene, try to figure out how to find them. But I feel like they're going to get to a point where they're going to have to partner with someone else. Like let's say they deem them as the threat, the Thunderbolts. Like I could see someone like that type of a group, the new Avengers now that have to potentially go after this new threat that is now on the horizon. Um,
probably, yeah.
obviously, obviously Simon doesn't has no ill will or anything like that. He's trying to help this dude that has helped him through everything that he's done. And somehow I feel like that's where we start to see maybe like the the interactions between some of our current MCU characters and bringing the two of them. Obviously, having Trevor there, everybody's gonna know. Like, just like listen, they alluded to all through this show. It's like, hey, you were the Mandarin, like the whole way through, and he's just
Yeah.
like, I'm just putting that
I mean,
behind me.
people
Don't worry
can't
about it.
act like they don't know he's the Mandarin because that would be crazy. Like you can't, you know what I mean? Like they gotta, you know what I mean? Like it's important.
But I think someone's gonna go at whichever team, regardless it may be, someone's gonna go after
Yeah.
them to try to bring them in. But obviously, as we start getting closer to like Doomsday and things, they're gonna end up becoming an ally to whatever team and then build into the grand scheme of things. Obviously, he ain't going back to his apartment. So I don't know where
Yeah.
exactly he's going to be able to go and stay. He's going to be on the run, but I think that's where we start to lean in toward things for. And obviously with his abilities, um it's gonna end up playing into the grand scheme of how you talk about the affinity stones and seeing the colors of the powers. Like somehow I feel like he's going to meld in there where it's like, oh snap, Simon decimated this building, but that ability looks similar to X, Y, and Z or whatever it is. Maybe he can be
Yeah.
the thing that we need to help out. Um, so I think that's how we're going to start to see them move and integrate them into the MCU. And obviously, it's going to get to the point he's going to have to use his powers like full on. Whether he ends up, I doubt he'll be the first person to run into Doom whenever he shows up. But obviously, if a threat or something like that presents itself and, he's in the middle of a group, he's going to end up having to lose the cover to end up helping the the overall grand
Well,
scheme of what's happening.
where are they going? Like you
Dog,
just broke Trevor out of the Department of Damage Control building. Where are they going?
dog.
Where is he
They go
taking him?
the director's house. He going he gonna hide them or try to hide them in a panic room or something. I don't know. Like Trevor I feel like may still have some connects, even though he was the actor as
Yeah,
the
Shang-Chi.
Mandarin piece. So they may end up alongside Shang-Chi, who we haven't seen in a while now outside of Marvel Zombies, which really doesn't count because that I mean eventually it probably will, but that could definitely be a good hiding place. Um, Somehow they may meet Wong.
It just
I feel like Wong would be the one to
maybe.
be
I
like,
mean,
I don't know.
so I wonder if I mean, obviously we have to get to a point where somehow we get Battle World and
Mm-hmm.
with Doom and Doomsday. Like I'm wondering whether or not be, because of the powers that Simon has and
Mm-hmm.
how destructive the potential for them happen to be with Secret War, Doom, it it basically ends up being that Molecule Man
Mm-hmm.
is like the single character in every universe, right?
Mm-hmm.
That has the power to essentially destroy the universes and get it down to
Mm-hmm.
just like one universe. And I'm wondering whether or not Wonderman is that in every universe.
Hmm.
Um, like what it is that causes the incursions that they always happen on Earth, no matter where in the universe, two Earths end up colliding and they destroy themselves. And the in the comics, it was like they figured out Molecule Man was like the hub, right?
Mm-hmm.
He is being held like under Doom's castle or whatever it is, and they're able to sneak in there and talk to him. And he's been stuck down there for so long that when Peter Parker and Miles Morales go to meet him and ask him questions to kind of try to figure out what's happening, what's going on, he's just like, "Man, I'm hungry." Anybody got something. And for whatever reason, Miles had like a hamburger in his pocket, which, and he gave him a hamburger and he was like, I owe you one, kid, or whatever at the end. And so when all the other worlds were gone and those few people that survived it from the other universes, like as the Ultimate Universe and the main like 616 universe were kind of colliding or whatever, there were only a few people who knew what was going on or could remember. It was like Doctor Strange, Doctor Doom, I think Mr. Fantastic. There weren't very many people who knew what happened or knew what was going on or could remember their old universes. And Miles being in the 616 and his family being in the 616, and in the comics, it's his mother that passed away. It wasn't his father. But his mother got brought back to life and his family got brought over. And Molecule Man was the one who did that for him and brought his whole family over into the 616 because he owed him one. But I don't see them going the Molecule Man route. And it's possible that this whole thing with the kids and like Doom collecting kids could be that he's collecting like the most powerful mutants. Or he's trying to collect people that he thinks can contain Simon Williams. And that's kind of where I feel like we're going with this. It would be interesting to see them kind of fit him into that bucket where like he's kind of this anomaly and he has this power and nobody really knows what it is and it's completely unexplained, but like we've never seen anything like it, and it has this ridiculously destructive ability. And like knowing what he is as a character in terms of like being able to handle the Hulk, being able to deal with Hercules, Thor, being able to deal with Captain, like if like you can throw hands with Captain Marvel, like that's not you know what I'm saying? Like, hey, no, that's pretty serious. I don't know on what other level or what other scale. I don't think we have anybody else in the MCU that exists like that with that kind of power. And it might actually make sense to make Wonderman that thing and have him be the one
I like that.
In every universe where like right now where he is, maybe he's kind of got it under control, but you can imagine that the explosion that happened that only took out the movie set could be way worse if he gets angry, if there's no Trevor, you know what I'm saying, to kind of wheel him back in and keep him, whatever.
Well,
And on
unfortunately, you
all
know
these other
what?
planets, like
It
that
would
could happen.
it would take someone killing Trevor, which now he doesn't have that. He doesn't have that barrier that's in between, and he just he lets loose, and unfortunately that takes out a universe, an Earth or whatever it may be. That absolutely could be a thing. But I like the idea of being able to take, I wouldn't necessarily. It's We don't get the traditional origin story out of Wonder Man. We just get the actor and all this type of thing, which I like when they're able to do that. Where even if they did, I probably wouldn't have been so upset because for me, not really truly knowing the Wonder Man full on thing, at least getting those out, cool. But I like the mystery, like you talking about, of what his powers are. Like all we know from just the glimpses, he's destructive. The show by the time we in, he can fly. So clearly he's got the abilities of, typically when you have those type of things, you're on like like you said, the Captain Marvel, Superman, like you're on that type of level. So if they could take him in,
I think that I just gonna say I think that the beauty of not really having to have origin stories that explain your powers is exactly what the beauty of mutants is. Like it's completely random. You have no idea what kind of abilities or powers people are going to get. Some people have things that are slightly similar or whatever, and then you have people that like, you know, are blue. You know what I mean? Or whatever that mutation happens to do to them,
Mm-hmm.
that like technically you don't have to explain. Like, to me, if they were to try to do an origin story where it was like somebody shot him with an ion beam that gave him power, like, it's so stupid and corny and kind of,
Yeah.
it makes way more sense to just make him a mutant
Make him a
and just
mutant.
be like, yeah, he turned 12
And
and
that
he
power
got
just
upset one day, or his father passed away or whatever it was, and that set it off. And you kind of get the story, like they kind of tell you, oh yeah, he was part of a kitchen fire, and mind you,
yeah.
he was not hurt.
Nope.
You know what I
When
mean? Which
doctor
is,
did the exam, it was just like, yeah, he got shirts messed up and all that, but he good. He perfectly fine.
no smoke inhalation, no, right? Again, we're talking about somebody who technically isn't, like, you can't. This dude has been quote unquote killed like 6 or 7 times in the. He always comes back, and I don't mean like he comes back like regular comics written. Like, Slim just kind of can't die. Like, if he was a mutant in the comics, which he's not, but if he
Mm-hmm.
was, he would easily be Omega level. Like,
That's what I
just,
was getting ready to say. And with damage control, as they start assessing these superpowered individuals, they may be the ones to start classifying people as, Omega level and all this and put together. And then we start.
bro, there's no doubt in my mind that they are going to be the people with the quote unquote mutant registration act. They're gonna be, you know what I mean? Like it is.
It'd be crazy if we
They
could
would be the
actually
ones.
get that introduced, outside of Civil War. Like, we had a variation of it, but to be able to probably still do the Mutant Registration Act could be a good arc, especially maybe they do go after trying to do like a Civil War 2 like they did in the comics, but you have it under
I
something
mean, I don't
like
even think they. I mean, well, like the Mutant Registration Act was different from. It technically was different from. They did the Sokovia Accords in this,
right.
and the what led to Civil War wasn't the Mutant Registration Act. That was a much older thing that like
Mm-hmm.
is back from like the early '90s or whatever. But it's the same principle. Like, even if you
Mm-hmm.
watch the original like X-Men movies, like X2 kind of goes down that road with like Angel and him trying to shave his own wings off, and his
Mm-hmm.
father like, but having like damage control has Stark tech. They stole it from when that, and they have the alien tech from when the Chitauri attacked in New
Mm-hmm.
York originally as damage control. They're the ones who went and collected. I mean, that's what that first Spider-Man movie was about with the Vulture. Like, he was taking that tech and using it for himself and selling
Mm-hmm.
it on the street, and they came in and kicked all his people out and took that. So they have Stark's tech as well as the alien tech from the Chitauri. So they have the components that they might need and or might be necessary for them to build Sentinels. Like something that can detect superhuman or super powered individuals, or the mutant gene. You know what I mean? Or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, if you will. So we could absolutely go that route if we need to. I just don't think that that's going to happen. I mean, we could see a small version of it that
Mm-hmm.
then comes after we get the whole battle world thing and that gets destroyed, and then we kind of get back to having
Mm-hmm.
a singular universe, or what I'm saying, whatever it is. um but they're definitely riding that wave, and this feels like a really good start to like what we're doing, and
Where
where
we're
we're going.
going to.
If Wonder Man is any indication of what the MCU's year is going to be like, with a new season of Daredevil, a new Spider-Man movie, Doomsday coming out. Like, if this is even close to being like what this year is gonna be like, bro,
We are in
it's gonna be a
for
problem. Yeah, it's gonna be a problem. Um, solid 9 for Wonder
solid
Man.
9. Solid 9.
Solid 9. I honestly right now one of the best. Like, just go ahead and binge it, bro. Just
Mm-hmm.
4 hours, get some popcorn, and take a bathroom break or two. But just sit down and just watch it
Watch
all.
it.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Maybe two chunks. Maybe do 2 hours and then 2 more hours, give or take. But again, you're talking 8 episodes, 23 to 30,
Mm-hmm.
32-ish minutes per episode. Totally worth the watch. 100% worth the watch. I highly recommend it. Having said that, we're gonna wrap up this episode of Spoiler Boys. I'm Gage. This is Jokes. We look forward to seeing y'all on the next one. With that, we're out. Toodles and loos.
Loading snacks.